Welcome into the Sportsmemo College Football Every Game on the Board podcast with our first guest up for today, Teddy Covers. Teddy, welcome into the podcast. How are you?
Hey, great to be here, Drew. Excited to talk some college football. Hey, man, it's November now. These games really matter. And one of my favorite times of the year for betting college football, because you see oftentimes not enough overreactions to teams that have changed their stripes since September and early October.
Finding change, that's where it's at, Teddy. Excited to get your opinion on game numbers 145 down to 172 on the odds screen on sportsmemo.com. And guys, remember the coupon code TEDDYSAVE. We've been running it this week, and that's for Teddy's 90-day all-access pass for only $549. That's a huge savings, normally $975. So big discount there with the coupon code TEDDYSAVE on Teddy's 90-day all-access. Get you all the way through the Super Bowl props, NFL, college football, college basketball, NBA. Great time to be a sports bettor, and the coupon code is TEDDYSAVE at checkout. Teddy, first game up, 145, 146, Maryland at Indiana. 55 the total with the Hoosiers laying -1, or you can find some pick'ems out there in the marketplace. How do you look to bet this Big Ten affair?
Well, in some ways, and you can say that Indiana might be the easiest team in all of college football to handicap. Because
Maryland.
Sorry, yeah, Maryland. Thank you. Maryland might be the single easiest team in college football to handicap, because the handicap for the Terps is very simple. When they can run the football, they win and cover. When they can't run the football, they don't win and cover. And boy, the results show that really clearly. Look at the last. Look at just here in Big Ten play. Okay, they have against. Sorry, let me look at my Maryland numbers. Indiana. Okay, against Big Ten play, they run for 315 against Minnesota, win and cover. They run for 290 against Rutgers, win and cover. They run for 431 against Illinois, win and cover. The 3 games against Michigan, Iowa, and Michigan State, well, they didn't combine for 250 in those 3 games, and they lost all 3 and failed to cover the number. So here's the handicap. Maryland can run, they can win. If Maryland can't run, they can't win. Indiana's run defense, it's certainly not an elite unit by any stretch of the imagination. Of course, the Hoosiers have lost 4 in a row since their 4-1 start. But from a spot standpoint, here's Indiana. They lose here, their season's done. They have at Michigan next week and then Purdue in their finale. They want to clinch bowl eligibility off a bye. Maryland's a beatable team, and this is basically their only chance to do it, to get to 500 and have a chance against Purdue in their finale. So I would expect a concerted effort from the Hoosiers. However, I don't know that run defense is going to match up well against a Maryland team that has been devastatingly effective running the football against lesser defenses all season. Although the Terps could still be dealing with the aftermath of the DJ Durkin back and forth last week, Maryland is not a team I'm looking to back right now. It would be Indiana or pass for this better, even though the Hoosiers' run defense numbers fairly dicey against a team like Maryland.
Teddy, yeah, I knew you meant Maryland when you said an easy handicap. In this Maryland team, I couldn't agree with you more. I love what you said. If you can stop their run, you can beat them. If you can't, it's going to be a long, long day. And I'm with you. I think the Terps is the side. I don't know if you do as well, but at Pick'em, or you can even get +1, because I think Indiana is going to be up against it stopping the rush. But you do bring up an interesting handicap here as far as the DJ Durkin situation. Do you think it carries over? Because last week, I think that Michigan State could just stop the run, and they were going to lose with or without all that fiasco. Do you think it carries over, though?
I am concerned that locker room is fractured. There were clearly guys that supported Durkin. There were clearly guys that didn't support Durkin. That's not what I want in a basically pick-em price range on the road in November, where you have issues with a potential divided locker room.
Makes a lot of sense. All right, let's move down the card. 147, 148, another 9 a.m. kickoff Pacific time. SMU at UConn. Looks like SMU laying close to 20, seeing 19.5 across the board. High total here, Teddy, was 66 or 66.5 across the board as well.
Sure, and I mean, when it comes to college football defenses, there are bad ones, there are very bad ones, and then there's Connecticut. And at various times this year, they've started 9 freshmen on the defensive side of the football. It is a major rebuilding job. And, they gave up another 49 last week to Tulsa. Tulsa can't move the football. And, it was on the road, admittedly. And their last home game, they shut down UMass, much to my surprise and chagrin. And they shut them down pretty good. But of course, the Minutemen offense has been hit or miss the last couple of weeks. But, UConn's defensive numbers are slightly better of late. They're still dismal, and it's a bottom-tier defense. Of course, the question is, can you get to the window laying this type of price with the SMU Mustangs? And look, since they had a rough start, they lost their first 3 ball games. Since that time, and again, that was North Texas, TCU, and Michigan. They're not supposed to win those games. Since that time, they've only lost twice, and the 2 wins, they took Cincy to overtime and lost. They were plus-price dogs in that ball game. And they had the game against UCF that they were in, and, they ended up not covering. But no shame in either one of those 2 defeats. SMU certainly has shown they're capable of beating the weaker teams on their slate. But this kind of a margin, even against this defense, I'm not opposed to the concept of betting against bad defenses by any stretch of the imagination. But when you're talking about laying this type of price, laying 19 and a half points with an SMU team that has no history of winning games on the highway by this type of margin, that isn't built to necessarily to run up leads, and that I don't trust them. That's the bottom line. This looks a little bit lofty for me to get involved with the Mustangs here.
Teddy, moving down the card, we got ACC affair. North Carolina at Duke. 58 the total, with the Dukies laying 10 at home.
Sure. So everyone knows now about this Northwestern trend where the game is underdogs covering in all the Northwestern games. No one's talking about the underdog trend in Duke games. Duke covered as a favorite in their opener. They played 9 games since. The dog has covered all 9 of those contests, and most of them really hadn't even been that close. Just look at the last few weeks for the Blue Devils. They're underdogs at Miami. They win that game in straight-up fashion. They're favorites to Pitt. They lose that game. They're favorites to Virginia. They lose at home by 2 touchdowns. They're dogs at Georgia Tech. They win. They're favorites against Virginia Tech. They lose. And on down the line. 8 straight dogs in Duke games. And, I continue to look at Duke and say, yeah, they're okay. They're pretty good. This is not a loaded football team by any stretch of the imagination. And North Carolina, for all the troubles they've had, it's been a miserable season. Fedora's on the hot seat. I don't know if he survives, even if they win this game, even if they win out. But they've been competitive. They're not laying down. Each of their last 4 losses by 10 points or less in conference games. And, given this point spread range and given, with Duke's laying doubles, given North Carolina's ability to hang and given Duke struggles to cover bigger numbers, I don't know that I want the favorite in this one, even though the underdog now 1-7 on the season. Worth noting, the 1-7 squad is coming in with extra time to prepare.
Yeah, I like North Carolina here too. I like what you said. They haven't laid down. They've played a lot of teams tough, Teddy. And outside of that ECU loss early in the season, really all of their losses are respectable losses. So what do they call this? The war on Tobacco Road? Something to do with the Tobacco Road rivalry.
Yeah, it's not actually. I don't know why I thought they had extra time, but they had Georgia Tech last week and lost that game by 10. For some reason, had them confused. Man, November, when you start working, November's something else. You have like something from another sport sticking in your head when you're talking about these teams. And Maryland, Indiana, boy, it is that time of the year where there's a lot of opportunities out there. But I don't know about you, Jew. The sleep. We're all a little sleep deprived at this time of the year.
Absolutely, it's still a fun time to be a sports bettor. And,
it's a great time. There's so much going on.
Yeah, absolutely. College basketball just starting this week, and doing the rundown on college football here. We got a good game now, Teddy, with Oklahoma State at Oklahoma. Good rivalry anyway. Point spread telling us it might not be too good of a game with 20.5 the Sooners laying at home, 79 the total, Teddy.
Yeah, and I mean, there's been a lot of money for Oklahoma this week. And a lot of money. I mean, this opened 70.5 an hour. It got bet up once, and then it got hit again, and now we're looking at 21s at most sportsbooks, both here in Las Vegas and offshore. And conceptually, I mean, Oklahoma State's been hit or miss all year. Their good games have been good. Their bad games have been bad. and the inconsistency has been consistent for the Cowboys. They are coming off a bad game, losing to the Baylor Bears, and they're facing a Sooners team that, I mean, Gundy's been good against everyone. He hasn't been good against Oklahoma. 2-11 straight up, 0-3 ATS the last 3 years. Although the last time they were 21-point dogs at Oklahoma, that was Mason Rudolph's come-out game. And they actually, did they win? I think they won that game in straight-up fashion. If not, they lost. Yeah, they won it, 38-35. But the last 3 years, since Rudolph's come-out party, it was all losses. And, of course, they don't have Mason Rudolph and James Washington anymore this year. That clearly shows. Kyler Murray's something else. I mean, this kid has impressed me as much as any QB this side of Tua this season. And, yeah, that includes Trevor Lawrence at Clemson and Will Grier at West Virginia. But, you know, even if Oklahoma gets to 50 here, no sure thing they're going to cover. The Sooners' defense, not as good as their offense, and that makes me a little bit reluctant to lay 3 touchdowns in this rivalry game, despite the recent series dominance by the Oklahoma Sooners.
Teddy, let's head back up to the Big Ten. We got Northwestern at Iowa. Interesting handicap here. 2 teams that, going to play a lot different types of offense, but 43.5 the total, 10.5 the Hawkeyes laying at home.
Yeah, and certainly, you know, we talked about Duke covering as a dog. Obviously, Iowa, Northwestern games. And if you got the right number last week, you pushed at plus 10 with Northwestern against Notre Dame. But certainly from a scheduling standpoint, it's a very banged-up Northwestern team. You have Wisconsin, then you have Notre Dame, and now you got to go on the road to Iowa. That's tough, you know, for a banged-up squad, even with all of the success for underdogs in Northwestern games this season. And the series history is really interesting. You know, 3 of the last 5 meetings have been tight. 2 of them went to overtime. 3 of the last 5 decided by a touchdown or less, which says, hey, it's a competitive series. Take the points. The other 2, Iowa won 40-10 and 48-7. So when it doesn't work for Northwestern against that defense, they get shut down by the Hawkeyes. Worth noting, I haven't talked a lot at all. I haven't talked about weather at all on this pod. In November, you better check your weather reports. And looking here, I haven't seen much for weather, which is why I haven't talked about it just yet. But just a reminder, you know, it will be chilly. And, I mean, Northwestern still has injuries everywhere. I mean, an incredibly banged-up football team. But, you know, do you really trust the Iowa Hawkeyes in this double-digit chalk range? An Iowa team coming off back-to-back losses at Penn State at Purdue, you know, and both intense down-to-the-wire games. Now you got to win by margin. They got Illinois and Nebraska to close it out fairly easy after this one, in theory. But I don't know that I want to lay the points with Nathan Stanley and the Hawkeyes here. It would be Wildcats or pass for this better.
Teddy, we got game number 155, 156, South Florida. That's USF at Cincinnati. Looks like Cincinnati, the Bearcats laying 14 or 14.5 at home, 55 the total.
Boy, you know, I mean, I had Cincy week 1. I'm like, this is a team you should ride. And, of course, I didn't. There's Cincy and Virginia. I nailed right off the bat and then didn't ride either team far enough. Unfortunately, because the Bearcats have been one of the best point spread success stories in all of college football this season. That has everything to do with Luke Fickell's defense. You know, I mean, last time out, they shut out Navy, held to 171 yards, but they've shut down everyone, SMU, Temple. You know, the only loss they have all year was that overtime game against Temple, but repeatedly holding teams to their season low or their second season low in yards. It has been a truly dominant stop unit. And then, of course, you know, I mean, Desmond Ridder, he's not one of these QBs that go, wow, but he doesn't make mistakes. Only 5 interceptions on 225 passing attempts this year. Michael Warren is a feature back. He doesn't make you, he doesn't blow you away. Steady, you know, not a flashy team and not necessarily the type of team that you're excited about laying 2 touchdowns with against USF. But, I mean, I can't say the wheels have come off USF because we knew that they weren't that good to begin with, despite their hot start where they won the first 7 games of the campaign. But the last 2 contests, you know, giving up 57 to Houston and losing, giving 41 to Tulane at home and losing. The defense has been gashed. The offense hasn't been able to trade points. I don't like the trend line for USF. So even though Cincy's no longer a point spread bargain the way they were, and this offense isn't built to win games by multi touchdown margins. It'd be Bearcats and or under or pass for this better total, sitting at 55.5. If you shop around, you can find higher.
Teddy, let's head to the Sun Belt. We got an interesting handicap here with Arkansas State heading on the road to take on Coastal Carolina. Also, Arkansas State laying 6.5 or 7, so a key number here. Make sure you shop around. And looks like 60 to 61. Some opinion on the total as well, Teddy. How would you look to bet this Sun Belt game?
So even though Arkansas State's 2-3 in Sun Belt play, they're still live to reach the conference championship game. They're still live for the Sun Belt title if they can win out and things break right. They're not dead yet, and they're talking like they're not dead yet. And of course, Coastal Carolina is, I'm not going to say an easy handicap team, but I mean, they can't stop the run. So when they face a team that can run the football, they've been having problems. Arkansas State, in a great offense, not a team that's going to throw the ball all up and down the field, but they have been able to run the football on a fairly consistent basis. That probably bad news for Coastal Carolina. There's a reason that we're seeing the Red Wolves laying a touchdown at some of the sharper books on the road in this matchup.
Yeah, I think Arkansas State's definitely the more talented team. It's just sometimes they haven't shown up this year, so it's tough to trust them on the road against here in Coastal Carolina. I don't think the number matters a lot here. If Arkansas State shows up, I think they're going to blow them out. If not, Coastal Carolina probably wins outright. That's my view on it. Who knows? It probably lands 4.5. Arkansas State.
Yeah, the number always matters, my friend. And that's it's people always ask, what's the biggest difference between pros and Joes? What's the sharp square differential? How do the sharps do it? It's real. Sharps are betting numbers, and squares are betting teams. So it's certainly, if you're going to lay with Arkansas State, find the 6.5. Don't lay the 7 there.
Yeah, absolutely. Number shopping's definitely the way to go, and that's my square handicap on Arkansas State.
Well, the whole key is that if you can turn 1 or 2 pushes into wins and 1 or 2 losses into pushes over the course of the season, turn 2 pushes into wins, two losses into pushes from line shopping, you'll be amazed at what that does to your bankroll in terms of the bankroll growth. It makes a significant, over 100 wagers. 2 losses into pushes, 2 pushes into wins makes a bigger difference than you think it will.
Yeah, what that would a $100 better would save $400, right? Plus the big on the 2 losses.
Plus your juice, my friend. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we got 159-160 ECU at Tulane. 55 the total, with Tulane laying 13.5 in the Big Easy.
You ready to lay 13.5 with Tulane?
I don't want to bet East Carolina.
You're darn tootin'. I don't want to bet East Carolina. Yeah. Okay. So I've kind of made fun of Scotty Montgomery a couple times here on the pod, but you have to keep making fun of the guy. He is the single worst point spread coach in all of college football. 8-24. 8-24 against the spread. That's a 20 if you just blindly bet against East Carolina since Scotty Montgomery got there. You cashed at a 75% clip.
That's amazing.
That's pretty easy. And of course, what's one of the issues this year? Well, their yardage numbers have been good. The stats are okay. And yet, in fact, they have a plus 35 yardage edge per game on the season, yet they've been outscored by more than 12 points per game. Obviously, the defense isn't creating turnovers. Obviously, the offense is turning the ball over, given those numbers. And obviously, this team has been, fairly awful for extended stretches. But certainly on the defense side, every time I watch East Carolina, the offense is moving the ball up and down the field. I'm like, yeah, this team can play. And then all of a sudden you're looking in the fourth quarter and they're down by 3 touchdowns again. The defense just can't stop anyone. And here's Tulane coming in off a big win, a big national TV win. You we worried about the letdown spot? They got Houston on Thursday night coming up next. That's a big game. They just blew out USF at USF as dogs for their second straight road victory. I do worry about the spot for the Green Wave, but in terms of the handicap, this is the better of these two teams by a fairly wide margin. I don't see East Carolina stopping the Green Wave offensively.
Teddy, let's head out west. We got Oregon at Utah. Good game here in the Pac-12. 56 the total, with the Utes laying 4.5 in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, we're seeing Utah money, despite the fact, obviously, that the quarterback, Brent Hundley, is hurt, out for the year. The backup came in is a dual threat, Jason Shelley. And I think he got a field goal, led them to a field goal on the first drive where he came in after Hundley got hurt, and then they were shut out the rest of the way. His numbers were not very good. He did not necessarily pass the eye test. But coming off the bench, cold, behind a quarterback who you weren't expecting. I mean, Hundley's been really good, and it looked like Shelley wasn't ready to go in that game. I would expect Whittingham and company to have him ready to go here against the Oregon Ducks. And, of course, defensively. Utah's been really good. They had a very bad game last week. Everything sort of fell apart after their QB got hurt. It's worth noting they have nobody behind Shelley. I think they have a sophomore walk-on, Drew Lisk, is the only other QB on the roster. And, of course, that defense, 38 points and 536 yards allowed last week. Now, the markets are saying expect a bounce back. We have seen the Utes take a fair bit of money in early betting action here. And this is an Oregon team that, they've been out-yarded in each of their last 4 ball games. They've given up opponents season high or second high on 4 different occasions. They've lost their last 2 Pac-12 road games by 2 touchdowns or more, and they're over after a win of 21 or more in their last 7 tries. So a lot of trends pointing against the Ducks, and the stats pointing against the Ducks. Herbert, whatever. Oregon's cooled off after the hype in early season play, and certainly I'll take my shot with Whittingham here. I can understand why the money's coming in on Utah. I think the Ducks are still a year or 2 away from a year away. Let's not make it 2. But with all the turmoil in that program, all the arrivals and departures, I don't think the depth is there, the physicality is necessarily there to take on the Utes in Salt Lake City, even with a backup QB for Utah.
Yeah, it's an interesting handicap because we're finding change here, Teddy, with betting on this game with Tyler Huntley out. And, he's a next-level guy, Teddy, in my opinion. I'm not saying he'll play quarterback in the NFL, but I think he's going to get a look to make an NFL roster. The way that just the athleticism alone from Tyler Huntley. And Shelley coming in, like you touched on, he didn't, light up the stat sheet at all, just that one drive where they got a field goal. But we've seen a lot where, a cold coming off the bench, a guy really struggles, but you give him a week of practice with the number ones, and it's he looks a lot different that next time. So it's kind of a tricky handicap what's going to happen here with the Utah offense, huh?
Sure. Well, Whittingham is a guy that we like. All right. And you talk about Whittingham off a bad loss, Whittingham against good teams. There's a lot of different trends you can point to for Kyle Whittingham in this particular role. And oftentimes it's the opposite, where the guy comes in off the bench and he's red hot and he lights everyone up, and then all of a sudden they got film on him, and the next week he comes out and is not the quarterback that looks nearly as good. This is a situation where I think it'll be a big difference playing at home, and having the full prep. I would certainly expect Shelley to be better. And the one advantage he has, of course, he is a dual threat. You like the young QBs who can come in and make a play with their legs when they can't find any place to make with their arms.
Teddy, let's stay out in the Pac-12. We got Washington State at Colorado. Looks like the Cougs laying 6 on the road, 60 the total in Boulder.
Yeah, boy, things have gone south for the Buffs in a hurry. Remember when they were 5-0 and taking money at USC?
Oh yeah.
Clients and I cashed with the Trojans that night. I wish I'd have bet more against Colorado since then, because they haven't won a game. They did cover a point spread in defeat since that time, but it just hasn't been the same for the Buffs, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that they haven't been not fully healthy. They're a really banged up football team, and of course Laviska Shenault certainly stands out in that regard. He hasn't played for the last 3 weeks, and again is listed as questionable. This is an NFL wide receiver, going to be one of the top receivers taken in the draft. And the other guy, K.D. Nixon, who had 198 receiving yards in the loss to Oregon State, a game in which they led 31-3. And then last week, just one catch for 9 yards. He's not 100% either. So there's a Buffs team that has lost their way. And boy, the criticism of Mike McIntyre has been extraordinary. I don't know if he can keep his job if they don't go bowling this season, which, I don't know they're going to find a better coach than McIntyre. I'm a McIntyre fan. I'll put it that way. I don't blame him for Colorado's struggles this season. But, Wazoo's enormous betting bandwagon finally lost a game last week against the spread. They still won in straight-up fashion. But, of course, we're talking about a team that had covered every previous point spread all season. And when you find teams with those type of betting bandwagons by November, the bandwagons tend to be large. They tend to be a good notch too overvalued. And the clients and I were able to take advantage of that last week with a play on Cal, as the Cal defense was pretty impressive against Wazoo. Wazoo just wasn't sharp in that ball game, but they survived the hiccup game. They've been real good on the highway all season. Colorado's not in good current form, circle the wagons game or not. I don't want the home dog, in this one. Although, if Chanel plays, it might be a different story. But again, he hasn't played in any of the last 3 ball games.
Guys, we've got a couple of games left here, and remember the coupon code's Teddy Save at checkout. That's just Teddy, his name, with the word save, S-A-V-E, no spaces, all capitals at checkout. That's the coupon code for his all-access pass, normally $975. It's $549 all the way through the Super Bowl. That's NFL, college football, college basketball, NBA, all of Teddy's plays for just $549 throughout the Super Bowl. 90-day all-access pass. Teddy, moving down the card here, we got Charlotte at Marshall, 41.5 the total, with the Thundering Herd laying 14.5 at home.
Charlotte's defense, and again, this is not a team that I've been watching every week or anything, but Charlotte's defensive numbers are really good. They're giving up 304 yards per game. That's number 12 in the country. And they've done it, against Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, Southern Miss, Western, teams that move the football. They had the one, bad game against UMass. I guess they had a bad game against App State too. But a lot of that was turnovers. That was early on. I'm not worried about a team getting lit up in September. The last 4 games, they've given up 14, 21, 17, and 14 points, which tells me I'm not excited about laying this price. So with the Thundering Herd, the defensive underdog is worth something. And, of course, Marshall coming off I'm not going to call it a devastating loss, but at Southern Miss, they let that game get away, lost by a deuce last week. This is a mediocre team. They're 5-3. Yeah, this is a bowl eligibility game. Big deal. They got, UTSA next week and FIU. That'll be a challenge to close out the season. But they have another opportunity next week. In my mind, this price looks a little bit high for a team against a team that has played pretty good defense. Although the one concern we do have, Charlotte, against the better passing attacks they faced, have had something of a defensive struggle.
Teddy, we got North Texas at Old Dominion. It looks like UNT laying 14.5 on the highway, 66 the total.
Yeah, I mean, that Old Dominion win over Virginia Tech is just it just stands out because they haven't done anything since. They have one win, Western Kentucky, in a game where they gave up 34. They gave up 42 to Marshall, 52 to FAU, 51 to Middle Tennessee. This defense isn't getting any stops. Now, okay, they're off a bye. Great. They didn't get stops against Virginia Tech. It was just the offense got hot. Now they're coming off a bye, but they're really stepping up. North Texas is good. They're not kind of good. They're not all right. Sun Belt good. This is a team that has shown the ability to compete. We saw them blow out Arkansas. At Arkansas, and North Texas too coming off a bye, and they've been money losers. They're betting bandwagon. Remember, they got off to that hot start. They had a big betting bandwagon after the Liberty game, and they had a blowout win there. They've only covered one number since then, and since the week 4 of the season, they've only covered one. So the whatever bandwagon North Texas had is come and gone, and now they're rested and ready off a bye against a team that they should be able to dominate. If I'm playing, I'm laying in this one, even though 14 and a half, you're not really get a legit point spread bargain with the mean green.
Teddy, we got a rare Saturday action, Bowling Green at Central Michigan. 51 the total. And what the heck is Central Michigan doing laying 7.5 points here, Teddy?
Well, that tells you all you need to know about Bowling Green. It tells you all. Bowling Green has been horrific. They've already fired their coach. They did cover a couple of numbers. They covered against Toledo. They covered against Western Michigan and got in the 30s in those ball games. They get the 30s here. They'll win the game in straight up fashion, but it's a 1-8 straight up, 2-7 ATS squad. BG has no betting bandwagon, though. There's no possible way I lay it with Central. Let's not forget, especially when you're talking about the teams in the smaller conferences that don't have the quality depth. This is the 11th straight game for Central Michigan. They have not had a bye yet this season. They got a bye after this, and then Toledo the following week, where they will close out their season with another loss. The offense has scored 10, 10, and 7 the last 3 weeks. They cannot move the football. So here's BG's defense can't stop anyone, and like Kent's moving the ball against BG, I guess that's a concern. But a lot of their struggles have been against better offenses: Georgia Tech, Toledo, Western, Ohio. I know this much. I will not lay a touchdown with the Chips are 5-5. They get bowl eligibility here. Great. Or sorry, ATS. They're 1-9. They're 5-5 against the spread. They will not get bowl eligibility here. Oh my God, it's November. When I'm transversing the straight up and ATS stats in my head as I'm talking, that's November. Chips are 1-9. They're dismal. I will not lay a touchdown with them. This point spread surprises me. That being said, Bowling Green is even more dismal, obviously, given the point spread here. Pass.
Teddy, everybody knew what you meant when you said 5-5 CMU. No, this Chips team is nowhere near 500. We knew you meant against the spread, but we'll move down the card. We got last game up here: 171, 172. Colorado State at Nevada, 65 the total, with the Wolfpack laying 14 at home. Teddy, want to know your opinion on obviously Colorado State, Nevada, how to bet it, and also, is this the best Nevada team you can remember since you've been in Vegas?
No, some of the Chris Alt teams were really good. The Colin Kaepernick team was really good.
Way better than this team, though?
Yeah, that Colin Kaepernick team was a monster, dude.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
I mean, the Mountain West was not ready for what he brought to the table. Not even close. So, this is it's an intriguing game. And, of course, when we look at the Nevada squad, they're not elite defensively. That offense is really good. Colorado State, they play a good quarter, and then it's bad. And then, they showed some signs, back-to-back wins at the start of Mountain West play. And then, they had that awful debacle in the first quarter against Boise, where they're down 28-0 before you blink, and the turnovers, and then another loss to Wyoming prior to the bye. So, I mean, they are rested and ready for whatever that's worth. But they're not very good. And, and the fact that Bobo was in the hospital, and then he missed time, and then he was up on the, coaching from the press box, and then he's back in the field. It's been an awkward season for Colorado State. I'm not convinced that we see their A game down the stretch here in November. And, I mean, the Wolfpack, the one thing we know about this team, they will bully you when it comes to that running game. They are very, very physical up front, and they've been able to survive and move the football regardless. It hasn't mattered so much who's the feature back this week or what's going on. And, of course, Ty Ganji, who's faced his fair share of injuries, he's been very, very effective throwing the football. I understand why the money's come on Nevada. Reno, not an easy place to play necessarily in this time of year in particular. And if I'm playing, I'll be laying. It's going to be cold. Not that cold, but cold enough on Saturday night, although a team like Colorado State not likely to be affected. Of course, this is one of the late-night bailout specials, and it is a game where I'm confident the books are likely to need Nevada. I don't know the books get what they need when it comes to this game. Wolfpack or pass here.
Guys, like what you hear for Teddy Covers, make sure to check out sportsmemo.com. Got plays up on the front page. And remember, the coupon code TEDDYSAVE, $549, normally $975. So huge discount on his 90-day all access. Includes all the sports, all the plays Teddy releases for the next 90 days. That gets you past the Super Bowl. Teddy, anything else you want to put out there to the listeners before we shut this down and get on to Kyle Hunter?
Thanks for listening. Enjoy the games. Good luck. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll talk to you tomorrow for the NFL Every Game on the Board podcast. And, guys, we'll be right back with Kyle Hunter to continue down the college football Every Game on the Board podcast.